I'm going to play this because this concerns his supposed defense of Nicolás Maduro in Venezuela. Now, the dumb part about that at first is that he's not like pro-Maduro. The same way they do like you're pro-Hamas or whatever, if you're against what's happening between Israel and Gaza and what Israel's done to Gaza, you're like pro-Hamas or whatever. If you're against regime change in Venezuela, if you're against the random bombings of 20 or so different boats so far and our largest aircraft carrier pulling up out there by Venezuela and potential talks of land strikes and all of that in Venezuela. If you're against this stuff, then you must be pro-Maduro, just like you were pro-Saddam or you were pro-Jihad or pro-Taliban or pro-Al-Qaeda or anti-troops back in 2003. It's sort of the same thing. So it's ridiculous.
So this is a very revealing exchange that took place 6 days ago, last Thursday, on stage with Megyn Kelly. Ben Shapiro was just sitting there being interviewed by Megyn Kelly and he said something like, well, Tucker Carlson's, for Maduro, the communist leader of Venezuela, who I guess were on the way to killing or something, forcing out, regime changing him. He defended Maduro. Didn't, actually. And Megyn Kelly says, well, Tucker said in his show that Maduro, most people didn't know this, whatever his many faults, I wouldn't hire him as an economist, okay? But whatever his many faults, has the most socially conservative country probably in the hemisphere. So Venezuela is just a fact. I mean, I didn't make this up. I'm not in charge of Venezuela. Just noticing that Venezuela has banned pornography, banned abortion, banned gay marriage, banned sex changes, and banned usury. You don't have credit cards with 40% interest in Venezuela. Ben Shapiro responded this way.
Tucker's made the point. I'm not going to here to be Tucker.
He said they banned pornography, they banned abortion, sex changes, gay marriage, and usury. He says you don't have credit cards at 40% interest rates in Venezuela. Going to take a couple of these things. As you guys know, Venezuela has gone through somewhat of a crisis, crisis to the tune of tens of thousands of percent inflation, something that we can't even comprehend how terrible that would be and what it would do to our country. And so they went through this as a result of their terrible economic policies, but they've got a very social conservative government, apparently. Those are important. Those are good things. I'll start with a 40% rate on the credit card. It's like they don't have 40% rates on credit cards. First off, yeah, they do. Their legal limit is, I think, 57% on cards. But then there's this thing where you can be so against usury. Now, usury is technically like making money off of money, making interest on loans, but it's been sort of redone to be like, well, excessive interest on loans, and that's usury, and that's the bad stuff. And so they don't have that. They outlawed usury, and so what they consider excessive, their legal limits are like over 57% on their cards. And you can be so obsessed with like this idea of hating making money off of money that you don't consider all the downsides of that. And that's why I've always believed Tucker Carlson was pretty bad on economics. It's the guy who said he would ban like self-driving trucks or whatever to save the 10 million trucking jobs. And setting a cap on the credit cards has been really terrible for Venezuela. Can you think of a reason why a 57% rate on a credit card would actually be pretty good in Venezuela? Like, that's pretty awesome, actually, because their inflation is more than that. Your money inflates faster than that. It's not a bad rate. But what this is actually equal is stoppage of private credit for people. When you need to be able to make money off of that money, like private lending for people. If people still find ways to get the credit, they'll go to black market sources to get the credit and to get the loans at much higher interest rates. But those rates on the cards are not bad considering the inflation. The bank loses money on that, which is why they don't do it. And to not be able to couple those two things together, like, oh, well, but it's a good thing that they don't have these 40% interest rates on credit cards. Dude, their inflation rate's 100%. What do you want the bank to do? You literally want them to loan people money and lose money on it? Is that really what you want them to do? That's right. That's the good economic policy. What it's equal is people can't get access to credit. And so they just don't have the money to get their economy going. People aren't going to lend it out. They do have the 40% rate. It's capped at 57. And most of these years, the inflation rate has been above that rate. So the banks aren't lending out money. They're not giving people the credit cards because it's literally a losing proposition every time they do it.
Defender, but he's made the point that Maduro is culturally conservative.
Who gives a shit? The guy's a communist dictator. Everyone in his country is eating dog. He's shipping fentanyl to the United States to kill Americans. Why do I give a shit whether he's anti-LGBTQ rights?
Who gives a shit? I do. I'm not moving to Venezuela. I'm not pro-Maduro. But I care about that. Why wouldn't I care about that? I've got kids. Like, first of all, I'm against abortion. Sorry, unpopular. I feel that way. I think it's really sad. I would personally become poorer to end abortion, voluntarily become poorer to end abortion in the United States. That's not a choice. Don't want to become poor, but I would because I care about it. Maybe you don't. Maybe you're offended that I do, but I care about it. Lots of people care about it. I don't think pornography is good.
Before I go on the abortion thing, he talks about the pornography thing again. Like, do you literally think that because they ban pornography, there's no access to pornography in Venezuela? Like that, what kind of mind? It's like, oh, well, the government banned a thing, so now the people can't get access to that thing. Wow, isn't that awesome? Huh. No, they still get it. Don't be ridiculous. On the abortion thing, it's like, I would personally become poorer to end abortion. And the point I want to make on this is that what they have done to their economy, the fact that this is a communist dictator or whatever-ist dictator you want to call it, is markedly more important than whether or not they've banned abortion, or whether or not they've banned usury, or whether or not they've banned gay marriage. The people there can't find food. 91% of the country is in poverty. They've had at least over 100,000 excess deaths just from the poverty, not counting all the other deaths. 8 million people have fled the country. But abortion, as far as the stats I could find, from like women's reproductive rights and stuff like that, because they watch this kind of thing, and then like different NGOs and all that, and Human Rights Council and World Economic Forum and all that. Like, he's decided, well, this is super important. This is a good thing. I want my country to, ban abortion. I really care about this. Well, as far as all the estimates I can find, before their economic crisis, there were between 250,000 and 400,000 abortions every year before the crisis. And then during and since the crisis, there have been between 300 and 600,000 abortions every year. But they banned abortion. Isn't that great? I care a lot about abortion. Well, if you care about abortion, apparently you need to care about the economics first. Because what's actually happened is they can't find contraceptives, first off. Severe shortage of that to none. So a lot of people are having unwanted pregnancies. And then on top of that, what's happened? Their economic conditions are so terrible that people don't want to bring kids into the world. They don't want to have to feed a kid, to raise a kid. And so they've found other ways of having abortions. There are plenty of doctors and people that will do the abortions. They're just not officially done by like the government's healthcare clinics. But they're still done. In fact, all the estimates I can find is that there are more abortions since they outlawed abortion than there were before. And so if you're going to say you really care about that, then the first thing you have to care about are their economic conditions, and that is the most important thing. Banning things doesn't equal people can't do it anymore. It never has. It never will. That's not the case. Banning things does not equal it no longer happens. And so then you have to remember, well, it still happens. So does it happen more or less than it used to? Well, because of the economic conditions, it actually happens more than it used to happen.
That really hurts people. I don't think pretending that the sexes are the same is good. And you claimed that you didn't think it was good, but it turns out, quote, I don't give a shit. Maduro's against Israel. Oh, okay. Well, you spent like a decade pretending you did give a shit, that you were on the side of like normal Americans who have a mix of concerns. They definitely care about economics and they care about social issues too because they have children and they see where this is going. It's not good. That your economic condition is not the only measure of health. Your spiritual condition matters too. It's just a fact. It does. If you're totally degraded, it doesn't matter how much money you have. It's not worth it. It's not worth getting the whole world and losing your soul. Sorry. And most people feel that way, but not Ben Shapiro. He doesn't give a shit. So why the hostility? Well, maybe because if you keep talking about the so-called social issues, which are not limited to abortion and pornography and gay marriage, the trans issue, they get pretty quickly to economics, to usury, to lending money and interest. And most people, including me, are not against lending money and interest, conceptually. But it depends on what interest rate it's being loaned at. So there are payday loans in this country that are 600% annually. 600% interest annually? And who's taking payday loans in this? Well, poor people are. And they're never getting out of it. They're car loans. They're credit card loans. There's private credit. Used to call it loan sharking. At exorbitant rates. Rates so high that people will never get out from under them. They're enslaved by it. It's called debt slavery. It's 100% real.
So I have to talk about the payday loans. First episode I ever did about this, I looked it up this morning, was on May 22nd, 2019. And I was responding to Bernie Sanders, talking about payday loans having a 600% annual interest rate. I get super annoyed by this. Because, first off, in the places where they've gotten rid of the payday loans, like people find other ways to get the loans at generally higher interest rates and bigger consequences for not paying it back. But payday loans don't have annual interest rates. And there's just something that bothers me about this, of putting such a big emphasis on this kind of thing, on the usury thing, because it's the cost of money. Usury is just the cost of money. Like when you look at Venezuela and he talks about how it's a good thing they don't have 40% interest on credit cards. They do. They have it capped at 57%, but whatever. They shouldn't even cap it. What's the cost of money in Venezuela? That to be way higher for the person lending the money to actually get it back, plus with the inflation. And so they don't lend the money. So then the economy slows to a halt, which is what's happened. So it's not a good thing. You might hate the idea of these exorbitant interest rates, but you're not helping anyone by doing that. You're mad at the person who's charging money for money. And you get so upset by the fact that they're doing that the people who can't benefit from it, be damned in the scenario. I don't like it. That's a bad thing. It's a bad thing to charge too much money for money, even if literally that's what the market dictates would happen. Payday loans don't have annual interest rates. Payday loans are typically for a span of 14 days. And they don't even technically have interest rates. You can call it an interest rate if you want to, but they charge you a fee. Most of the time, per $100 that you take out, they'll charge you a fee, somewhere between $10 and $20 per $100 for whatever loan it is you're taking out. So if we split the difference, we call it 15. If you get $100 from them, they'll charge you $15 for doing that. You might say, well, that's 15% interest rate. That's fine. You can call it that. But then they take that and they annualize it for a 14-day loan, a loan that is supposed to be paid back after you get your paycheck. So when someone goes and they say, well, I need $100, I get paid next week. I get my paycheck. I'm like, I need the $100 right now. If I don't, they'll shut my electricity off. They'll do whatever. You go to a person and you say, I need $100 right now so they don't shut off my electricity. And they say, okay, well, you got to give me back $115 in 2 weeks. And you call that an interest rate if you want. They call it a fee. But then people who just don't want this to happen for whatever reason, because it upsets them, in order to manipulate people, will tell you what the annualized interest rate is on that. So if the person who goes and gets a $100 loan and they get a $15 fee, if they don't pay it back, they get another $15 fee, and there's a $15 fee every single 2 weeks. I don't know what 26 times 15 is. That's the $260, $390 on top of your $100. So you're going to have to pay back $490 for a $100 loan that you took out. And they're like, oh, this is 400% interest. Or whatever it is. I don't know if any of the math was correct when I just said that. That's 400, 500% interest rate. No, it's not. It's 15% interest rate for the $100 loan. Talking about annualized interest rates for something that is a 2-week loan just means you don't like it, that's what people have to charge. And by the way, they make like $1 off of that after all the fees when it comes to underwriting, all this kind of stuff for actually doing the loan. It would be the same thing as going, like when you go to a hotel and it's $150 that night, or you're like, oh my God, $55,000 a year for a hotel? That's insane. And the The clerk's like, well, you're just staying here tonight, right? I'm like, yeah. Are you kidding me, though? You're charging me $55,000 for a year to stay here? That's ridiculous. Well, no, sir, you're staying here tonight and you're leaving. Well, yeah, but come on. It's the same thing. I don't know. This kind of stuff just drives me nuts. I'm going to play a little bit more of the video.
It's not an ideological point. It's just an obvious observation. And it was one of the observations that Charlie Kirk was making on a daily basis before he was assassinated, which is interesting. And it's that kids are buying food on credit. Buy now, pay later. That's credit. You're paying interest on that, whether they call it that or not. Late fees. People are loaning you money at a much higher interest rate than, say, rich people are borrowing money. And that's bad because it's really hard to get out of it.
And it's not exactly clear which thing he's saying bad, because he is talking in the context of interest rates and people charging exorbitantly high interest rates on things. But the thing that is bad in this scenario, and I'll leave it open, the door that he agrees with me on this, the thing that is bad is that people are in that scenario in the first place, that they are having to take out these loans, that you can order a pizza and split it up into 4 payments or something like that. You know, you're having to put your groceries on a card and you're getting a higher interest rate on that. Like, it's bad that people are in that situation in the first place. But a lot of times and I'm not even claiming right now that he is pushing for this or that he would push for this, but I don't know. Some of the things I've heard him say he would support in the past, I wouldn't rule it out. Like, you would outlaw them charging these, like, oh, you know, they're charging them way higher interest rates than they would charge rich people. Well, no shit. Because they're going to get the money back from the rich people. The rich people have collateral. This is the cost of money. And you got to factor in the risk of giving people this money. It's just a basic economics. And I don't care if you're talking about how, this just feels bad, or it seems unfair that they do this. But then this is no different from Bernie Sanders or AOC or the Trump administration sometimes trying to find a way to get around basic economics. And that's what this is. That is the cost of that money. And it reflects the risk of them either giving a rich person money who's got a bunch of collateral, they're giving you money and there being a lower likelihood that you're actually going to pay it back. Just like with the payday loans, people who typically go and get payday loans are in a real tough spot. There's a lower likelihood they're ever going to get the money back. And so they got to charge a higher interest because the people who do pay it back for all the people who don't pay it back. I realize there's a vicious cycle because the more you charge, the less likely it will be that people pay it back, that kind of thing. I understand, but that's what they're doing.
I was almost 40 years old when the year I graduated from college. It was 28. How did that happen? People are in too much debt. This is probably, if it isolated in a world with a lot of issues, a lot of pressing issues, debt for young people is probably the number one issue, which is to say it's the number one thing that is destroying them and making it impossible for them to get married and have children, which Ben Shapiro told us he cared about. And that's the conversation that they absolutely don't want to have. So if you say, well, Maduro, whatever his many faults, probably stole the election. Looks that way to me. I don't know, but it looks that way. People say he's bad. I'm okay. I believe you. He's bad. But he doesn't have that. And that's a good thing. And Ben Shapiro's like, I don't give a shit. Shut up. He's a communist. It makes you wonder how we're defining communist here. Because, of course, in the United States, communist no longer means someone who believes Marx and Engels. It has nothing to do with academic theory. That's all gone. Communist in the United States is a synonym for someone who seeks to rot a society from within and destroy it. And I guess I would argue that if you don't give a shit about pornography or 63 million abortions in the United States since Roe v. Wade or whatever, and if you don't care about 600% annual interest rates on payday loans being given to the poor, who's the communist exactly?
He's really good at this. Listen, I already knew I was doing this today, and I still listened to a whole Tucker Carlson episode this morning. I like Tucker Carlson. I listen to him. I think he's a good guy. But he consistently has pretty bad takes on economics. First off, the Venezuela part, he's like, well, I think that matters. At least he doesn't have that. Yeah, but he's got 91% poverty. He's got people who still have to go get the loans. They actually get higher interest rates on the black market and way worse threats of things happening to them if they don't pay it back. There's more abortions now than there were before it was illegal. But at least they have that. But at least they have what? Ben Shapiro was totally right in his response, other than the shoveling fentanyl to the U.S. because he's just trying to back the war propaganda. He was right. Who gives a about those? They're worse off. The people are worse off, clearly, because of the economic policies. And then he does this brilliant thing. He's so good at it. Like, he redefines communism, which I haven't seen this redefinition of communism. It's no longer Marxist, the Marxist definition of communism or whatever. It's people who seek to rot a society from within. That's what communism is. And now the people who are okay with pornography being legal or abortion, which I'm not a fan of abortion. By the way, neither is Ben Shapiro, clearly. If you're okay with that and you're okay with 600% annual interest rates on payday loans, which isn't even a real thing, then you're the communist. The anti-communist would outlaw those damn banks from charging what they want to charge.
Who's trying to rot this country from the inside? Who doesn't care about the destruction of human beings in our country? It's not me. You're a communist. So I thought a lot about this. I didn't want, you never want to extrapolate too much from a single clip. You don't want to be cruel to people. You don't want to be unfair. Having been unfair many times, it weighs on me. Don't want to do that. So kind of looked around. Is this consistent with Ben Shapiro's worldview? Does he think GDP, the aggregate economic activity in a country, the bottom line number, which really doesn't tell you that much, but for simple people like Ben, who aren't sophisticated in their understanding of economics, that's important. GDP.
Well, I had to keep the part where he goes ahead and caps it off with simple people like Ben Shapiro who are not sophisticated in economics like him, apparently. There is a problem with people just thinking like GDP is all the thing that matters. Graph go up. That's what they say to own the people who just talk about GDP. GDP per capita and all that. Graph go up. That's what we care about, is that GDP chart continuing to go up. The problem in Venezuela is graph go down. If I say it's graph go down hard, that's the problem. It's not that you just want it. You want them to have all this extra abundance and 8 cars and the brand new cell phone and all that kind of stuff and say, well, yeah, look at that GDP. No, the people are dying because of their terrible economic policies. I know that he knows that. I know he knows that. I'm not saying he's saying what I just said, but I got to make the point anyway.